Hi, welcome to the Vault of Horror. My name's Brian,
I'm Steve.
and this is going to be our first show. We're going to be doing basically talking about everything horror: comics, movies, music, toys,
Novels.
whatever we are reading or whatever we are watching at the time. We're going to do something about it.
And also, to give a little background, we are also both independent filmmakers. He's on his way to make his own movies. I've already made a short film called Snuff, which was screened at Motor City Nightmares, which is a horror con in Detroit. And I'm also making a film, not a horror, it's called Seth and Tia, which is in post right now. Almost done for its first cut. Going to be scored in relatively soon. And plan to write more.
All right. So what we're going to do for our first episode is we are going to talk about our top 10 horror movies
That influenced us.
that influenced us as filmmakers and that has influenced us in other ways in writing as well. And basically we're going to go back and forth between our numbers as we go along for our top 10 and give you guys a good taste of what our taste is like.
Uh-huh. So,
Yummy.
Want me to do the honors?
Please.
I'll start with my top 10, one of the films that influenced me. As an independent filmmaker, I have to put in the first Evil Dead. It is basically, wasn't it like a student film made by Raimi?
Yeah.
Yeah. He rented out a cabin and he shot this film with little to no budget. The practical effects look fantastic. The acting was believable. It's legitimately scary. It is just an amazing piece of work. And it led into some great sequels such as The Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and of course the hilarious TV show Ash vs. Evil Dead. You can't go wrong with the first Evil Dead. It is a wonderful film.
Classic. It's a classic. And so is my number 10, which is also Sam Raimi film called The Army of Darkness. Now, we all know that that's the third sequel to The Evil Dead, and basically sets up all of Ash vs. The Evil Dead as a show. But my favorite thing about that movie is that it's extra funny. It brings out all the comedy elements and all of the horror elements into like one neatly packaged, tight horror movie that just it's a rock and roll horror film.
It is got some of the greatest one-liners of all time too.
Absolutely.
This is my boomstick. Then my number 9 is a classic Universal monster horror film known as Dracula. Why? Well, let's talk about Bela Lugosi. Who's got a better screen presence than him? Nobody. He was just seductive with those eyes of his. He had an amazing, iconic voice, which basically, when you hear the name Dracula, you think of him. And the film has an amazing atmosphere, set design, creepy lighting. It is just a fantastic film. It's a movie I will watch every Halloween.
Absolutely. And my number 9 is The Descent. The Descent is just one of the most harrowing, terrifying, claustrophobic, atmospheric movies that there is. It is so scary and so gets into your head, and it makes for one of the greatest horror films that has ever been made. It is legitimately scary, and that's saying something for a horror fan. If I can't watch a movie and it's actually scary when I do watch it, it's a good movie.
Yeah, the movie made me really fucked with my anxiety, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love that film. I might watch that tonight.
There you
go. My number 8 is Alien. It's number 1. A lot of sci-fi films try to replicate this film, making a scary sci-fi horror film, but they cannot do what this film did. It was shocking for its time, such as a chest-bursting scene, and the film had, again, I use the word atmosphere a lot, but the film had an amazing atmosphere. It was just gritty. It was just creepy and suspenseful from beginning till the very end. And yeah, Alien has to go on there. It made great sequels such as the second Alien, which everyone will argue is better, and I can see why, but I have to put that one on there.
It's a great film. My number 8 is going to be The Mummy, the original. Boris Karloff. It is absolutely one of the first horror films that introduced the jump scare and just kind of got this creepy noir feel to it. It's a really great film. I love it.
Ah, yes. and of course they bring in a little bit of sideways since we're speaking mummies, since we all know they discovered a new tomb.
Yeah.
An update was they were thinking it might be Alexander the Great,
Which is crazy.
I can't wait to hear more about that. My number 7 is a very controversial film because it's either you love it or hate it. It's called The Witch. Again, atmosphere. I'm a big fan of atmosphere. The film had a creepy atmosphere. It was very unique in the sense that, number one, it wasn't just about the witch. It was about the things that surrounded that family and what drove them crazy. And the film had amazing cinematography, and I love that they spoke in Old English to give that authenticity to it. It is beautifully acted. Again, I say that, and just beautifully directed. It is an instant classic.
An excellent first directorial film
from Robert Eggers, and I can't wait to see what he does afterwards.
I can't wait either. So my number 7 is going to be Night of the Living Dead, the original Romero film. It is the quintessential independent film. It is everything that should measure what an independent film can be, and how successful it became as a film. The acting, the special effects, the atmosphere again of the movie is just second to none. There's just not quite another zombie film like it. Even now, after all this time, everyone's tried to copy, and the original is still one of the best.
It's very, very iconic, and I agree. I love that film as well. Now, my number 6 film is a werewolf movie, and anyone who knows me knows I'm a huge fan of werewolves. I read the shit about them, and if there's a werewolf movie, I will watch it, even if it's a piece of shit. But it's The Hallowing. It is weird, has a bizarre ending, has had a great cast, great atmosphere. Yes, I use that word again. Play the drink game. Every time Steve says that, means you're going to take a shot. You might die, but it has great werewolf creature effects. Now, many argue that American Werewolf in London is a better movie, and I can see why, but the reason why I liked it, it has more werewolves. And the werewolves look fantastic as well.
And the movie itself is just bizarre.
Yeah.
It's so weird. And again, it versus American Werewolf in London, the biggest difference is, say it again, atmosphere. It brings an atmosphere and a weirdness to it, and it's a fantastic film.
It's honestly one of the best werewolf movies ever
Absolutely.
made.
I mean, then there's Dog Soldiers.
Oh God, I love Dog Soldiers.
My number 6 is Dario Argento's Suspiria. Suspiria is absolutely one of the strangest horror films of all time. It has one of the best soundtracks by Goblin.
Best cinematography.
One of the best shot films ever. The colors and the 1960 atmosphere of it is just absolutely fantastic. Or I guess it would be more 70s.
Yeah.
But it is just one of the most visceral horror movies as well. It gets you in a way inside your brain that most movies can't, and that's why I had to put it on my list. It is just a beautiful, beautiful film.
It's on my list too, and I'll describe my input. That's why I kept my mouth shut when Brian described it, because I got my own opinions. It's definitely on my list. But number 5 for me is The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. It is a childhood favorite of mine, like Dracula. It has a eerie setting. It has beautiful makeup done on the Wolfman creature. It set the standard for werewolf films, and if you're a werewolf fan, you have to love that film. It is, and also I love the performance Lon Chaney gave of a tragic person who was cursed. He did not want this curse, and he was just tormented throughout. It's just a tragic, beautiful film, and
shot beautifully.
I will always watch that, eating popcorn during Halloween.
Absolutely. My number 5 is Dead Alive, Peter Jackson's total gore fest.
He needs to make more of those.
He needs to make more.
The baby.
We can only agree on anything that this movie has the best gross out scenes of any of the other movies on my list.
The lawnmower scene.
The lawnmower scene is fantastic.
And they throw a baby.
Everything about it, the eyeball eating and everything is just perfect. It's a perfect horror comedy. And it's got all of the elements that you would want, and it has influenced every horror comedy after it.
Oh yes.
And everybody has tried to get to that level and just has failed miserably. It is a wonderful, wonderful horror flick.
It's an honorable mention to me, and unfortunately it didn't make my list, but number 4 for me is Suspiria. Like Brian said, I can't really I can't really say what he hasn't already said other than the fact that one of the things I loved about it was the color scheme, all the reds and the blues. It was just pretty to look at, and of course the Goblin soundtrack, wonderful. The film is bizarre. It's just creepy all the way through and just fascinating. You can't take your eyes off it. Dario Argento, how many filmmakers has he influenced? Almost
Every filmmaker that has done anything weird after him.
Yep. You can't. He's one of my inspirations. I love Argento, and honestly, it is a masterpiece.
It is.
It's through and through.
My number 4 is Halloween, John Carpenter's quintessential slasher flick. Like you said earlier, it's not the first slasher flick, but it's the first one anybody paid attention to, and it is again, we're going to talk about atmosphere. We're going to talk about atmosphere a lot. The atmosphere,
film is the king of it.
It is. It's dripping with atmosphere. Every single second is filled with tension and anxiety, and it's really, really hard to keep your eyes off of it while you're watching. It's a beautiful film.
And my number 3 is also Halloween. In that one, same reason you said, anxiety driven, wonderful score from John Carpenter, wonderful acting from Jamie Lee Curtis. It is just a great movie all around. It is a movie everyone needs to see, and I cannot wait for the new one that comes out.
Can't wait.
And written by Danny McBride of all people,
right?
Which makes me more curious to watch this film.
Yeah, it'll put butts in seats for sure.
It'll put my butt in my seat, especially with the fact it's from the same director as Pineapple Express,
right?
Which is going to make it even more bizarre.
Yeah,
I am definitely
interested.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be fantastic.
My number 3 is Friday the 13th Part 2. And yes, I know that's a weird choice, but it's the one where you get more Jason. That's the whole point. That's the whole reason we love Friday the 13th is because of Jason, and that's the movie where you really get him. That whole first movie is drama and mom stuff, and it's kind of weird, and you can't enjoy the second one unless you've seen the first one. But the second one, in my opinion, is a better film. It also has some interesting cinematography you've never seen in other movies before either. It's the long top shots where they're coming down on the campers in the room. There's something about the way that they set up each of the kills and the way that they set up Jason and the all of that stuff like building through the film, right? It makes it one of the best kind of slasher popcorn flicks that there is, and I love it.
Yes, I did enjoy that one. Number 2, though, mine is a classic, highly regarded. Not only is considered one of the greatest horror films of all time, probably if not the greatest horror film of all time, one of the greatest movies ever made. It's called The Exorcist. Linda Blair gave an amazing performance, and good lord, that makeup is so creepy. I used to have nightmares of that. And
captured the whole world's attention.
Max von Sydow. Thank you. Just gave one of the most memorable performances ever. The film had beautiful camera work, just amazing acting from everyone involved, and amazing directing from William Friedkin. It is seriously one of the scariest films of all time.
Almost perfect.
And so many movies try to copy it to this day, and they cannot do the job that film did. And the book is just as good too, if not better. It's even more scary because it feels like William Peter Blatty is bringing you into that world, and it is fucking scary read.
Absolutely.
I couldn't sleep when I was reading it. Just read the book, watch the film. Of course, if you haven't seen the film and you're a horror fan, you're not a horror fan.
Right.
Get your ass, turn this off, go watch it.
Right. Well, my number 2 is what I consider to be the greatest horror film of all time, and that's Hellraiser. Hellraiser is everything you could possibly want in a horror flick. The special effects, the last 10 minutes of the movie, everything about it is just beautiful and scary, and it just is wrong in so many levels at the same time. Absolutely love that film. It is going to be widely considered to be one of the greatest horror films of all time. It should still stand as one of the greatest horror films of all time.
I agree thoroughly about your opinions on Hellraiser. I didn't make my list, unfortunately, but it's definitely an honorable mention. And yeah, my number 1, and oddly enough, I fucking hate zombie films with a fiery passion. Although I will admit there are some good ones. your all-time favorite film. You and I have a disagreement on. Don't ask me why I hate zombies so much. Just a personal taste. I'm not going to rag on anyone who doesn't agree with me. But Return of the Living Dead. Why did I love it? Because it's a zombie film that I actually liked. So I have to give it credit for that, but that's not the only reason. It's so goddamn entertaining and fun. The characters are iconic. There's some great one-liners, great dialogue, cleverly written, great creature effects, great atmosphere. It is a movie I will watch at least 5 times a year. It is a movie I never get sick of. It has a great soundtrack too, especially the song Party Time from 45 Grave. Fucking great movie.
Excellent movie. I really love it too. It's hilarious. And the special effects are just like they're on another level with that's to me that's the highlight of that movie is the special effects.
And by the way, when you hear that term brains, it comes from that movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My number one is not Steve's number one.
Not even close. I didn't like it.
I really love Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. It is my most rewatchable horror film that I have on here that I can even think of. Everything about it just brings that zombie survival horror to life. The practical effects on the zombies are absolutely fantastic. And obviously, I love the original Romero version. It is a fantastic film.
I love that one.
But the remake is got something a little bit more visceral and a little bit more scary than I think that the original had. And Romero made my list, obviously, but this Snyder's film has amazing acting, it has amazing special effects. It takes zombie trope to another level because it's not the first movie to have running zombies, but it is the first one to really show you what that would be like.
Yeah, I can see why people would like it. I'm obviously not the biggest Snyder fan. We had this talk.
Sure.
And I'm not going to say he's a shade director. Just the reason why I don't use those words is because he's competent and making something look pretty. I just don't particularly like the way I don't think like his style. It's just not for me, and I just didn't care for Dawn of the Dead, but I understand why people would like it. I think I'm going to get into my honorable mentions. I love Hellraiser 1 and 2. I can't say what you haven't already said. Pinhead has a great screen presence. It's creepy. It's gross. I love it. And then there's Nightmare on Elm Street. I really wanted to put it on my list, and I'm wearing a Freddy Krueger t-shirt. And he is probably one of the best horror villain of all time. It is scary. It is just wonderful film. It just didn't inspire me the way the other films did, but it's just a great film, and it has to go on get mentioned somewhere. American Werewolf in London. I love that film. It has the best werewolf transformation scene
so far.
And honestly, it is one of my favorite horror films of all time. If we were making a top 20, we'd make it. But it's so good. And Bride of Frankenstein and the original Frankenstein, they have to go on there because the makeup job for Boris Karloff as the monster
and the iconic nature of both characters, absolutely.
You just can't, and it still holds up. And it's, in my opinion, it's probably the best makeup job of all time because no one had the visual of the monster. Whenever you hear the name Frankenstein's monster,
that's who you think of.
That's who you think of. Yes, I keep saying Frankenstein's monster because everyone refers him as Frankenstein. It is not Frankenstein. Frankenstein's the scientist who created him. For those who need that little clarification.
Right. My honorable mentions are going to be Martyrs. I really love that movie.
Gross movie.
It's a gross movie. It's hard to watch. You almost have to put your hands over your eyes and kind of peek into it because there's just some scenes that just change you. Saw, the original Saw, one of the best independent films of all time.
As an indie filmmaker, that should have made my list somewhere only because that movie did inspire me a lot of ways. And James Wan is a fantastic director. I love everything he's done so far.
Absolutely. Nightmare on Elm Street, I can't say anything that Steve didn't already say about that. The original Alien, same thing, made Steve's list. And Shaun of the Dead,
hilarious.
Which is hilarious. Horror comedy, one of the best. It's the only movie, in my opinion, that has lived up to Peter Jackson's Dead Alive in terms of making a horror comedy. So, those are our lists. Thank you for tuning in. Please put your own lists or any other comments that you have below.
And maybe tell us what you want us to review, because we're going to be reviewing stuff. Tell us what you want us to read or watch or play.
Give us some suggestions. Tell us to watch. We are gamers, so you can tell us to check out some games, horror games. We're definitely into that.
We play video games, we play tabletop games, and we read comics, we read books. I mean, just let us know. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're good. So thank you for tuning in, and you can check us out at outrightgeekery.com or right here on YouTube.